Friday Night Stars, presented by Whataburger, is brought to you by Geico, 85 years of savings and service. Texas Lottery, play the Dallas Cowboys scratch ticket today. It's your ticket for a chance to win big. And by Whataburger. Stop on by Whataburger and try the patty melt today. It's an all-time favorite for a reason.
Wow, these weeks are just flying by. It might be a bye week for the Cowboys here at the Star in Frisco, but the high school football season rolls on. This is Friday Night Stars. Bill Jones along with Kyle Yeomans, a full slate of games, and in fact things are getting very interesting as we are mere weeks away from postseason play on the high school front in Texas.
Isn't that wild? I mean, we're in week 9 of the high school football season. We've got so many more things to talk about over the next couple of weeks, but then guess what? It's playoffs, and then it resets, and the season basically starts back over, and it gets even that much more intense.
Well, and there's championships at stake across a lot of districts in the area, including in our Whataburger Game of the Week. How about a battle of unbeatens as in Lucas, the Lovejoy Leopards are hosting the Frisco Raccoons. Both teams 7-0 on the season, and both teams they're headed to the postseason, but they'd love to win a district championship along the way. And when you look at Frisco, it's a contrast in styles here, a run game versus a passing game.
Definitely so. I mean, in Frisco, you see 2 quarterbacks there up at the top. There are at least words early on that Carson will start the game, Mayazono will play a little bit as well, but it's really not about the quarterback position. They win in so many different ways. They win with their defense. They win with their physicality up front. They're led by Cole Hudson, the Texas commit, 4-star offensive guard who is as good of a player to run behind as anybody at the Texas high school football level. The wing T offense bullies opponents, and Lovejoy is going to have to stand up against it. The good thing for Lovejoy is they can score in a hurry.
They most definitely can. And, of course, Lovejoy is a team that made it all the way to the regional finals last year. They went 13-1 under head coach Chris Ross. And this is a high-powered offense. Of course, they lost R.J. Rucker last year, who made the team at Oklahoma as a walk-on, but they got a pretty good sophomore quarterback in Alexander Franklin.
Yeah, he's going to hit 2,000 yards in this game. And this is an offense for the Leopards averaging over 56 points per game. They've got a trio of wide receivers that are all threats. Jackson Lavender, Kyle Parker, Parker Livingstone. All 3 guys can score from any point on the field. As you see here, that's a fantastic way of looking at it. And whenever you have a young quarterback like they do with Alexander Franklin, you need some guys to step up, some veteran leaders in the passing game, and they certainly have multiple guys that can fill that role.
And Lovejoy, by the way, they may have a defense that can stand up to the challenge of Frisco, too, led by their 2 linebackers, Philip Jost, who has an offer from SMU here in the last couple of weeks, and then Peyton Pierce, the sophomore transfer from Allen, younger brother of Oliver Pierce, who was a Landry Award finalist back several years ago, but keep an eye on him. All right, let's move on to game number 2 on our games to watch this week. And how about this one in District 6A as the Marcus Marauders head to take on the Hebron Hawks.
Yeah, don't look now, but Marcus has dropped those early 2 games earlier in the year against Jesuit and Flower Mound, but they've won 3 straight, and they've put up 33 points or more in all 3 of those wins. 4-star Ashton Cozart really playing good football over the last 2 games. 7 receptions, 233 total yards, 4 touchdowns in his last 2 weeks. Expect him to be used in bunches. And this is a Hebron team that's really exciting as well. 4 straight wins, all of them in district play. They're undefeated inside the district bracket so far, and they beat one of the common opponents with Flower Mound Marcus. Flower Mound, 48-34. That was a Jags team that beat the Marauders earlier this year. They do a lot of good things well, but a little banged up at the quarterback position. It'll be interesting to see who plays the majority of the snaps there, but watch out for Dakota Bridges. Goodness gracious, he's a good player, and I'm sure he's got an OU connection there as well.
He does. Of course, his older brother, Trajan Bridges, was on the Oklahoma football team, but Dakota Bridges, 50 catches, 817 yards, and 9 touchdowns, and he is an exciting player to watch. All right, in District 6-5A, Division I, how about this matchup? And this is for the district championship, I would say. Lancaster Tigers taking on Woodrow Wilson, and these 2 teams with with identical records, not only overall on the season, but also in district play at 5-0.
Yeah, how about this for 6-5A? Forrester Field is going to be rocking downtown. I mean, Woodrow Wilson shouldn't be in this position, or at least you didn't think so going into the year. Both teams with a scoring differential of over 200 points over their opponents. Both teams are blowing out opponents, and by far, this is going to be Wilson's biggest test. Up to this point, it was probably North Forney in the season opener. They lost that game. Probably since then, it was W.T. White in the middle of the season. They passed that test with flying colors, but Lancaster is so explosive. Their only loss came in the opener to Port Arthur Memorial. Skills positions so far, I mean, honestly, all across the board. Fajon Wilson, the wide receiver, Isaiah Broadway, the running back, 17 total touchdowns between the two. These are two really explosive ball clubs.
And I like Isaiah Broadway's nickname. He goes by Bam Bam Broadway, and he's got Division I offers out there. And I love what Tony Benedetto has done at Woodrow Wilson, too. As they are headed to the playoffs, they've outscored their opponents in district play 238-40, while Lancaster 257-24. Other notable games. Here's some to look forward to. Duncanville and Cedar Hill at Globe Life Field, home of the Rangers. Not Globe Life Park, but Globe Life Field. First football game ever played there. Red Oaks, Mansfield Summit, and Heath and Mesquite. Which do you like there?
Well, of course, I'm going to go right at the top. First ever game, football game, I should say, at Globe Life Field, and this is the hottest ticket in town. Cedar Hill needs a rebound. They fell last week to DeSoto in that big rivalry game, 45-0. That was probably the most lopsided loss in Coach Lynn's career. Duncanville also starting to look a lot like Duncanville over the last couple of weeks. They've scored 40-plus points in their last 5 ball games. They continue to run the football exceptionally well. Everything working for the Panthers. This is going to be a fun one.
And then I'll take Heath playing against Mesquite. And, of course, Rockwall Heath coming off a 10-win season last year under head coach Mike Spradlin. They have so many weapons on offense for quarterback Josh Hoover. But how about Mesquite? Shout out to the Skeeters of Mesquite. They have won 4 of their last 5 games. Last season they went 2-7. This year they are 5-3. And so Mesquite is having a great turnaround season. We're just getting started on this edition of Friday Night Stars. When we come back, a trip to Frisco. It's the showdown at the Star.
This segment was brought to you by Whataburger. Order online using the app or at Whataburger.com for curbside pickup from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. or delivery. This segment is brought to you by Texas Lottery. Play the Dallas Cowboys scratch ticket today. It's your ticket for a chance to win big.
Friday Night Stars continues with the showdown at the Star this week at Ford Center here at home of the Cowboys. It's the Centennial Titans against the Lone Star Rangers of head coach Jeff Rayburn. And a Lone Star has that quarterback back.
Yes, they do. Oklahoma State commit Garrett Rangel. He's been back the last couple weeks after sustaining an injury earlier in the season against Toledo at Toyota Stadium. Him being back is a huge part of that Rangers offense, and they were able to take advantage of that last week. 33-3 was their win over a very, very good Wakeland Wolverine squad, but the defense for the Lone Star Rangers has been absolutely lights out to start the year. Speaking of lights out, how about on the offensive side of the football? Frisco Liberty, the Liberty Redhawks, have been putting up massive numbers on the offensive side of the football, and they look to continue that this week against Princeton.
Well, I think we're sort of where we hope to be. You know, we started the season senior-laden group. We've got 15 of these kids have been playing since they're sophomores, and so this is the culmination of 3 years of hard work, and we're right where we want to be.
Frisco Liberty is a program on the rise. From 1-9 in 2019 to a playoff appearance last year, the Redhawks have continued their march forward with the #1 ranked 5A offense in the Metroplex.
You know, whether it's Lawson Town or Jack Bryan in the running back spot, we just have a lot of weapons, and so I think it's hard to gang up on just one person.
Despite losing 5-star receiver Evan Stewart for the season, Liberty has continued their offensive success to a 6-1 start entering the final 3 games. A big reason for their success has been junior quarterback Keldrick Luster.
You know, he had the injury midseason last year, and he was putting up phenomenal numbers. He's picked up where he left off, and you know, the one thing that he's added has just been that leadership component of having been a year underneath his belt, and he had a great summer, and he's such a high character kid that is easy to follow.
Luster has led the offense to the tune of nearly 520 yards per game, almost a 100-yard improvement from last season, all while keeping their hopes for a District 7 5A title alive.
Wins tomorrow night against Princeton and then next week against Denison would actually put Liberty in a really good situation going into their season finale against Lovejoy. Very, very tough matchup with the Leopards. However, a win there would then put them in the driver's seat in terms of either winning the division or being the 2 seed out of District 7 5A.
So what does it say about this Liberty team to be able to keep it together, having lost their 5-star wide receiver in Evan Stewart in the middle of the season?
Evan Stewart might arguably be the most talented wide receiver the DFW area has seen in the last decade. I mean, he's up there with guys like Marvin Mims that you see making a huge impact on Saturdays with the Oklahoma Sooners. But even without him being in the fold, they have so many different weapons. And that's really a credit, I think, to one, Keldrick Luster, like I mentioned in the piece there. The quarterback is just one of those level-headed leaders that you really want for your high school football program. And then also Coach Matt Swinney has done a fantastic job. All of his coaches underneath them, the wide receiver coaches, the quarterback coaches, that offense is rolling on all cylinders, and they've been doing that without Evan Stewart. That is a huge testament to their work ethic.
And a testament to that district, too, District 7 5A Division 2 with Lovejoy in Frisco, which we talked about off the top of the show. All right, when we continue here on Friday Night Stars, a former Cowboys son is making some noise in Southlake when we come back.
This segment was brought to you by Texas Lottery. Play the Dallas Cowboys scratch ticket today. It's your ticket for a chance to win big. This segment is brought to you by Whataburger. Stop on by Whataburger and try the patty melt today. It's an all-time favorite for a reason.
30 years ago, the Cowboys had the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft and took a defensive tackle out of the University of Miami named Russell Maryland. Well, some 3 decades later, as Keith Russell reports, there's another Maryland making some noise.
The bar has been set high at the Maryland household. Russell, a defensive standout on the Cowboys team that won 3 Super Bowls in the 90s. His son RJ, the ultimate playmaker for a Southlake Carroll team that's undefeated.
Growing up, like, they make us play both sides of football. But I like scoring touchdowns.
Things that I maybe always envisioned myself doing, but never could do.
What Russell has done is give life lessons to the same kid who had a helmet in his bassinet. The same kid committed to play next season at Boston College.
Don't just be satisfied at just thinking that you've done enough. Do more.
Which leads to another piece of advice.
He always says, like, finish strong with what you do, so yeah, that's pretty memorable.
The Cowboys dynasty is a distant memory, way before RJ was even thought of. But it's nice to have a father who has been there and done that.
A lot of people talk about my dad sometimes, think he's pretty cool, and yeah, I guess it makes me feel pretty good.
I can say all I want to about what I did 30 years ago or 35 years ago, but when I have to take myself out of it and say what's best for him.
Just like his dad, RJ would love it if this is part of his future. But he'll never be judged merely by the game of football.
I feel fine with whatever I do.
No matter what he does, I want him to do his best at it, and I'll be satisfied.
Because this father-son relationship is rooted in a single premise.
It's 2 words, unconditional love.
R.J. Maryland coming on strong for the Carroll Dragons. You know, last postseason as a junior last year, he was injured and got back in time to play in the state championship game, made an impact on the team. Then he had 3 touchdowns in a game against Keller just a couple of weeks ago. But this is a big game tonight for the Carroll Dragons, just moments away from kickoff at Northwest Stadium as they are taking on an Eaton High School team that is matching them in District 4 6A right now. In fact, they actually have a better record in the district because they haven't had their another bye week yet, but they're 4-0 in the district, just one loss on the season, and the Carroll Dragons are steamrolling along this season unbeaten.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you expected Carroll to get off to a hot start and to be able to win a lot of football games, even with a younger quarterback with Caden Anderson behind center. He's starting to find a rhythm as well, though. This offense has scored 60-plus in 2 of their last 3 games, and this was a game last year that was not a cakewalk for the Carroll Dragons on their way to being the state runner-up. This was a 45-30 score, and that was the closest game until they made it to the postseason. So Eaton knows how to make this thing close, and they have plenty to play for. A win would definitely put them in the driver's seat for a district title, and with the ground game that they have, expect them to try and take control of the time of possession.
Yep, and make it a short game. J.B. Brown is their running back who has done some terrific things for head coach Ellis Miller. But Eaton last year, they went 9-4. They made it all the way to the regional semifinals, so had a great year last year. And now this is basically for the district championship at home. They get the Dragons at home as well. And here's another thing to watch out for tonight, whether Carroll's running back Owen Allen is going to play in this game. He got injured a couple of weeks ago, sprained his ankle against Keller, did not play. And they're just coming off a bye week. So he's had basically 3 weeks to get ready for it, though.
And if you are Eaton and you're trying to control time of possession, not having that threat on the other sideline is certainly going to be something that plays in your favor.
All right, next up here on Friday Night Stars, I can't wait to see who Kyle has picked for his power programs this week. All right, let's be honest. This is why you tune in every Thursday. It's the Power Programs and Kyle Yeomans. Who are your Power Programs this week?
So I've got 3 teams winning through the air, and they like to go through the air raid quite a bit. I'll start with Garland and Sergio Perez. Over 2,300 yards, 34 touchdowns through the air. Rockwall, Braden Locke, well, he's been a Friday Night Star staple over the last couple of years. 2,200 yards, 21 passing touchdowns. And then Lovejoy's Alexander Franklin. I mentioned him a little bit earlier. Maybe not up to par to where the other yardage leaders are in the area, but my goodness, he's got a 33 touchdown, 4 interception TD interception ratio. He's been slinging it around.
Well, that's as good as you'll find on any level of football. All right, here are my power programs, and they come out of the marquee matchups last Friday night. I've got the Allen Eagles, the DeSoto Eagles, and the Colleyville Heritage Panthers. How about Allen? Allen goes up to Denton, faces unbeaten state-ranked Geyer High School, and Jalen Jenkins put on another show for Chad Morris's team, running for 190 yards in a 38-31 win for Allen. What a big win for Allen.
This might be the biggest win, one of the biggest surprises in the entire state this year, with as good as Geyer was playing and the way that Allen was able to dominate them on the ground.
And so Allen is number 1 on my power programs this week. And how about as we head down south, the DeSoto Eagles. We talked about it earlier in the show as Cedar Hill's playing Duncanville this week. Well, they got DeSoto, and it was a scoreless game through 1 quarter. Kyle, I was actually listening to this game on the radio and told a friend that you got to tune in and listen to DeSoto and Cedar Hill. It's going to go right down to the wire. And it wound up being 45-0.
Didn't necessarily happen, did it? It was scoreless the rest of the way for Cedar Hill, and that's a testament to that DeSoto defense. My goodness, they were so clamped down heavy last Friday night. It was really impressive.
And then how about the Colleyville Heritage Panthers in a rematch of last year's playoff game against Mansfield Summit that was won by Summit, as Colleyville's Weston Smith with the pass that set up 1 touchdown right there. This is a game that went back and forth, and it came down to this. Summit scored with 1:40 left. It was a 35-34 game, and they go for 2, and Colleyville comes up with the stop and wins the game 35-34.
Gosh, what a classic. These are 2 of the more underrated programs, I think, in the area, if not in the state of Texas. And you got to love the reaction there from Coach Martin's squad, the way that they were able to convert defensively. That's been an offensive-minded team for quite some time, and that was a very dangerous Summit offense that they were able to shut down.
And that's a very dangerous Colleyville Heritage team under head coach Kirk Martin that you need to watch for when the Class 5A Division I playoffs get started next month. All right, we come back on Friday Night Stars with our Landry Award watch list in just a moment.
Friday Night Stars, presented by Whataburger, was brought to you by Geico, 85 years of savings and service. Texas Lottery. Play the Dallas Cowboys scratch ticket today. It's your ticket for a chance to win big. And by Whataburger. Order online using the app or at Whataburger.com for curbside pickup from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. or delivery.
All right, it's Landry Award time here on Friday Night Stars. We take a look at some of the candidates around the area, and this week we're looking at some area quarterbacks that are very high on the stat sheet.
Yeah, and I'm going to take a second to talk about Easton Swetnam, because when we talk about the Landry Award, it's not just the stats, it's what he brings to a ball club. And even talking with Coach Gilchrist with the Heritage Coyotes, he is the state-of-the-art quarterback, both on and off the field. He's one of the toughest guys you'll have playing for your ball club. And, man, he's battled through injuries. He's in a offense, at least going into the year, with a running back named Sean Wara they thought was going to use the ground game more often. He's put up some really impressive numbers even for that Heritage squad.
And the most recognizable names on that list, Josh Hoover at Heath and Sergio Perez making a name for himself for Garland with the turnaround that they're having on in that program this season. But the Landry Award, it's an award that's been won in the past by the likes of Kyler Murray and Myles Garrett. They've turned out pretty well, haven't they?
Yeah, they've done okay, I think. Kyler Murray, undefeated currently in the NFL, the only undefeated quarterback in the NFL.
For Kyle Yeomans, I'm Bill Jones. Enjoy your high school football weekend. We'll see you next week.